the darkness of this world. One name alone has overcome. His name is light. Our past defeated, our shame is gone. He bears our secrets in his scars. Our fears and failures overcome. His name is love.
There is no greater name. There is no greater power. The mighty name of Jesus can break the strongest chains. There is no greater name. We are not captive to sin and death. One name has freed us forevermore. The grave is finally overcome. His name is life. There is no greater name. There is no greater power. The mighty name of Jesus can break the strongest chains. There is no greater name. There is no greater power. The mighty name of Jesus can break the strongest chains. Every knee must bow. Even death kneels down. The kings of earth give up their crowns to the name of Jesus. Every knee must bow. Even death kneels down. The kings of earth give up their crowns to the name of Jesus. There is no greater name. There is no greater power. The mighty name of Jesus can break the strongest chains. There is no greater name. There is no greater power. The mighty name of Jesus can break the strongest chains. There is no greater name. There is no greater name. There is no greater name. There is no greater name.
No experience with the concept of Christianity and came up to you and asked you, so what is this thing that I keep hearing about grace? What is grace? What would your answer be?
God's riches in Christ expands.
See, that's a wonderful explanation if I know church language. If I know church language. Because I looked it up. I looked up the word grace. Loved it. The word grace, according to the Theological Dictionary, written by who knows, who cares, is that the grace of God is the irresistible, wonderful, unchanging love of Jesus. But what if you don't know what all of that means? you come from a home that you were not loved by mom and dad? What if you come from a home where you didn't have a mom and dad? Or you come out of the foster system? Or you come out of some of the other horrible circumstances that children live in today? So that when I look at you and I say, it is the love of Jesus, and I've never experienced love. Now what do you do? The longer that I'm around the high school students and the more that I deal with First Priority and Junior Civitan and meet a lot of these kids, the more I begin to discover, number one, how absolutely soul-shattering some of those stories are. Teachers, I don't know how you live day in and day out with the stories you hear and the things you see. It's got to take the time. It has to. So, what do you do when people don't know that language? I said this morning to the 8:30 service as well, we were talking about that on Wednesday night in my Bible study class. Several of those that are in the Bible study class on Wednesday night are fairly young Christians, they're fairly new Christians, and from time to time I'll use a word that I know that makes perfect sense to me, and one of them will say, wait a minute, you got to explain that to me, and I'm kind of like, oh yeah. I keep forgetting, I only speak one language. I only know church language. I've been speaking that language since I was old enough to talk. I'll never forget when I first went to college, we were in one of the religious classes and we were talking about communion and everything, and I used the word transubstantiation as a freshman in college. And everyone else in my class is like, huh? And I'm like, you guys don't know what that means? But I was raised in a home that was Christian and a father who felt like if you didn't know the basics of every denomination, you were not truly educated in the ways of God. And it dawned on me, I've spoke that one language all my life, and I don't speak English very well. Because we live in a place and a time and an instance where there are literally hundreds of thousands of people that do not speak church language, nor do they know our language. When I was in seminary, my roommate, his name was Paul, we were sitting and talking one day, and I forgot now how we got on the subject, but we got on the subject of the Bible, and we were getting ready for a class, and I made a very common reference of Paul in the letter of Romans, in the first couple of chapters of Romans, where he talks about that long list of all the different sins that you could commit. And the young man looked at me and said, that's weird. He's first year seminary, folks. And I'm like, Romans 1 and 2? Oh, I've never heard that before. How'd you end up in seminary? Well, I was in church. My parents did not raise me in church. I had never gone to church. And the very first Sunday that I was in church, I was sitting in the pew, and the pastor started preaching, and I just knew I was called to be a preacher. And the first thing I'm sitting there thinking is, you're probably braver than I am. And the second thing I was thinking is, I really need to learn from him, because I might learn to speak English instead of church English. So over the last week, couple of 3 weeks, as I've been thinking about grace, as I've been thinking about this amazing gift that God gave us of grace, what exactly is grace? If I'm not speaking church language, if I don't know the language of the church, what is grace? And how do you explain grace to someone who doesn't know our language? And it dawned on me. That's what Jesus did. You see, when Jesus comes along, there's a problem. The overwhelming majority of everything that the church did was done in Hebrew, and that's a wonderful, great thing, unless you don't speak Hebrew. And unless you had been educated in the church, which very few people had been, because only the children of priests and a few of the wealthier people and a few of the Roman people had actually been educated, the vast majority of people sitting in church or sitting in the temple on Saturday evening had no clue what the high priest was saying, because everything was done in Hebrew. I learned this firsthand several years ago when a friend of mine, Rabbi Schlesinger, who I absolutely love, was in Montgomery at Temple Bethel and then Temple Israel. And Shay and I used to go occasionally on Saturday evening, and we would go to temple services. And just amazing, beautiful services. I got to tell you, it was just phenomenal to go to the service, and it sounded so wonderful. It sounded so beautiful, and I'd get home, and my mother and I would talk, and she'd say, "So what did the rabbi speak on tonight?" And I'm like, "I have no clue. It was all in Hebrew, but it was beautiful." But no clue what the man said. No clue. And I had been studying Hebrew for 3 years at that point, and I still didn't know what the man was saying. But it was pretty. Oh, it was beautiful. No clue what he said, because I didn't speak the language. And I think sometimes we forget that people who were not raised in the church, and we're dealing more and more with generations of people that have never been in church in their life, that when they come and when they join us and when they visit us, that we have to remember that not everyone speaks church. There's a different language spoken out there, and it ain't our language anymore. My daughter sent me a text yesterday, and we won't discuss how atrocious her grammar was in that text. But the bigger problem than the text, I don't understand this language that kids use in texting. I'm sure those letters mean something, but not to me. And when I text back and I say, "Now exactly what you say, I get this answer of," it's as plain as day. Not when I'm not 17 years old. I'm an old man. You got to spell it out for me. But it's English? No, it's not. Not the English I learned. Bill, I got to tell you, what Bill? Bill, where'd you go? I bless you, brother, for doing math. Kinley Constant, folks, I was a straight A student in math. I took physics, analytical geometry, I took trigonometry. I went as far in mathematics as you could in high school when I was a child. We won't discuss how many years ago that was, but I went as far as you could go in math. I was a straight A student all my life in math. Kinley comes home and she lays this problem out on the table and says, "Do this." Believe it or not, not a problem. I know how to do it until she informs me, "Oh, that's not the right way to do it, because we don't do it that way no more." Are you kidding me? I love this. "Dad, your answer is right, but your process is wrong." Are you kidding me? I don't know how you know the process is, because she's teaching me how to do math. They tell me 2 + 2 still equals 4, but you just don't get there the way I got there. It's a different day. It's a different language. It's a different way of doing things. And if you don't learn to adapt, then you don't pass math. Same is true for the church. It's a different day. It's a different time. It's a different language. And if we don't learn to speak a different language, then we're going to have trouble reaching the people of God. See, here's where the grace of Jesus comes in. I never really thought about it that much until I've been working on this sermon. And what an amazing grace that Jesus, dealing with these people who love God, please hear that, they love God. They wanted to know more about God, but they didn't speak Hebrew. And nobody would talk English from Aramaic, actually. So along comes this man, who at the age of 12 impressed the priest with what he knew. So man, we're not talking about a regular man. We're talking about the most theologically educated, phenomenal man, Messiah you've ever met. And yet when he spoke, he didn't speak in Hebrew. He spoke either in Aramaic or Greek. We think he could speak both languages. Well, sure, he could speak both languages. And depending on who he was with, as to what language he spoke. because he knew it was important that they understand. Y'all remember the story about Pentecost? What made Pentecost so amazing?
They could speak in so many tongues.
Exactly. Exactly. You notice, here's what's amazing. It's not the people hearing that were changed. Who was changed? The disciples were changed. It says, the scripture says that all of a sudden the disciples were speaking in all the tongues of all the people. The people were not changed. The disciples were changed. Because the Spirit knew if they can't understand you, it doesn't do any good. He didn't change the people. He changed the servants. Jesus comes along. And everything, please hear me. Y'all remember when Jesus said there's nothing new under the sun? Y'all remember that verse? There is nothing in the New Testament that isn't written in the Old Testament. Did you know that? Even Revelation, as difficult of a book as it is, even Revelation is in the Old Testament. It's in the book of Daniel, the book of Isaiah, and in the writings of Elijah. That's what he meant by there's nothing new. You know what the difference is, though? When Jesus spoke the words of the Old Testament, because he spoke in the language of the people, they understood him. And it made sense. The grace of Jesus was the fact that he took this high, mighty language and made it into a regular story that people could understand. Folks, that's grace and love. When you're so worried about everyone else understanding that you forget what's comfortable for you, you forget what you know, and you become more concerned with other people. That's grace. And that's grace working through us. Look at the parables. When he's with shepherds, he calls himself a shepherd. When he's with vineyard owners, he calls himself a vineyard. When he's with day laborers that work out in the field, he talks in the language of a day laborer. He literally changes the way he presents the story of Jesus, the story of God, depending on who he's with. Notice, I didn't say he changed the story of God. I said he changed the way he presented it. That's grace. When you love someone so much, and you're so desperate for them to know the teachings of Jesus, that you forget what's comfortable for you, and you do it in a way that they understand, and that's comfortable for them. Next week we're going to discuss the 3 different ways that we experience grace. Folks, grace doesn't change. The way we experience it may change, but once again, we change, not it. Because everything that Jesus did with the people was not that he was changing the story, not that he changed God, not that today we say he contextualized the gospel. More church language. Trust me, you don't want to know what it means. It makes about as much sense as it sounds. I promise you it does. We don't change the story because the story never changes. But sometimes we do have to change the way we present the story. Thursday morning I was at First Priority and I handed out this sheet that was called Your Faith Story. And the first question I asked was, somebody tell me, what is your faith story? You could have heard a pin drop in that library. Everybody just kind of looked at me. Nobody said a word. I would call out all students' Brian, but I won't do that to Baby, Morgan, Wayne. I like picking on them. But then you know what I realized? They didn't know what I meant by faith story. That's not common language. Then I asked, what has God done for you? And then I got answers. See, there's a difference. Same question, is it not? Same question, just said in a different way. Sometimes the greatest grace we can extend is presenting Christ in such a way that it's not church language and it's not what we're comfortable with, but it's in a language that anyone can understand. That's grace. Because then you love someone else so much, you're willing to change the way you've done it, that they might be part of it. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the grace that Jesus showed us, who totally changed the way you had been presented in the past. Totally changed the way the temple worked and came in such a way that everyone could experience, everyone could understand, people could identify with your great love. What an amazing act of grace, that you were so worried about other people understanding. You were willing to change everything, that people might know God's story. We find ourselves in that same place this morning, Lord God, in a generation, in a place where our language is not necessarily the language of most people. It's not out of arrogance or out of boasting that we speak that language, but it's just tradition and custom. And because of that, Lord, people struggle to hear. The grace of your Son was that he spoke in a way that everyone understood. Never changed your story. He changed the way it was presented. Lord God, you know that we live among a holy nation and among a holy people. Show us how we can best present the story, the unchanging story of God. How we can speak, how we can present, how we can love in such a way that people see Jesus in us. And even if they may not understand grace, they experience grace through us. If there's one here this morning, Lord God, who's struggling with grace in their life, if there's one who finds themselves struggling with things going on in their life, and that grace seems distant, that grace seems almost foreign. Let them lay their problems down before you and be made new. Let them go to you in prayer and let them speak to those around them. They can feel the love and the grace of Jesus being shared with them. Lord, the greatest experience of grace was never what someone said, but rather what someone did. The grace of healing the woman with blood, the grace of healing the blind man, the grace of healing the man lowered through this roof. Lord, those actions show more grace than words could ever possibly convey. So be with us this week, Lord God, as we go forward, that through your love and the grace, we would present your grace, not in what we say, but rather what we do. People might see and better understand the grace of God. But it's in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit that we pray. Amen. My closing hymn is